Oh, and this weather doesn't quite feel like evening, does it? So thank you ever so much for coming to the National Theatre tonight, and welcome to the Cottage Women. My name is Judith, and I'm head of talks and exhibitions here at the National Theatre. We are over the moon and delighted to be working with the Stuart Hall Foundation on this event today. I'm going to let Gilane introduce everyone here, because you've also all got a programme and many of the bios are on there, so I'll let you find out that information for yourself. We're going to learn a lot tonight, I'm sure. But just to let you know, we're not expecting any fire alarms, so don't expect that. If it is, we'll take it out. It is very warm here. I understand that they've cranked up, would you believe, the aircon. So this is what it's like. If we do get overwhelmed, we can open the door. So please, if you do feel warm, put your hands and give me a signal, and I'll open the door if that feels for anybody. So I really apologise for that. Can we just put our hands in and open?
Thanks so much, Judith. I'd like to welcome you all this evening on behalf of the Stuart Hall Foundation and the National Theatre. This evening's discussion, which we call The Conversation Between Two Islands. And my name is Gilane Tawadros, and I'm the chair of the Stuart Hall Foundation. So just a little bit about the foundation. We're a young charity committed to imagining more hopeful, socially and racially just futures and catalysing action towards them. And our work is inspired by the life's work of Professor Stuart Hall, who is a Jamaican-born British public intellectual, founding figure of cultural studies, an inspirational leader for British artists and arts organisations, a brilliant educator, and a leading voice for social justice. And Stuart's work on race and media, on cultural and political representation, and his profound understanding of how politics and culture are deeply intertwined, I think are more relevant than ever. So today's discussion is a conversation between two organisations, as Judith said, between the National Theatre and the Stuart Hall Foundation. And the National Theatre kindly invited us to collaborate with them on this event, which has been timed to coincide with their fabulous staging of Andrea Levy's novel Small Island. It's also a conversation which pivots between two geographical locations, Jamaica and England. And it's a conversation which revolves around the writings of two exceptional individuals who straddle both those places, Stuart Hall and Andrea Levy. Andrea, a brilliant writer and also founding trustee of the Stuart Hall Foundation, who sadly died only a few months ago. So this feels a very poignant and emotional moment to be having this conversation. And she died really when she was just bringing to a whole new audience some of her most important works, Long Song, which was on the BBC, and Small Island, which is being staged here at the National Theatre. And those of you who know those works and seen the response, not just here, but to the film, the televisation of Long Song, which has enraptured and engaged thousands of people in her work, and these amazingly humane, incisive, witty narratives which recover forgotten histories of slavery and migration. Small Island recounts the experiences of her parents' generation, the Windrush generation coming to Britain in the aftermath of the Second World War. Long Song retrieves and reconstructs, through her imagination and extensive research, an unrecorded history, that of enslaved individuals in Jamaica. At the launch of the Stuart Hall Foundation, Andrea read from Stuart's memoir, Stranger. I'd like to quote what one of our other trustees, Catherine Hall, wrote in tribute to Andrea on our website. She said, she chose to read from the passage about Stuart's love of Jamaica, its tropical excess, its noise and colour, its distinctive cuisine, the ways in which those memories were ingrained in his consciousness, carrying with them a deep sense of loss. It was a moving experience to hear her, Andrea, reading those words about a place she had never lived in herself, but had occupied imaginatively. I'm sure in the course of the conversation we'll come back to the themes of memory and forgetting, presence and loss. And I'm really delighted, I'm very excited to have this amazing, distinguished panel of speakers here this evening. And I'm going to introduce them in order that they speak. So on my very far left and your right is Bill Schwarz, who's a historian, academic and writer. He's a professor at Queen Mary University and is working with Catherine Hall on assembling a whole series of books of Stuart's writings. And Bill is also engaged in working on a trilogy called Memories of Empire that explores the complex and subterranean political currents that emerged in English society during the years of post-war decolonisation. And the first volume, The White Man's World, was published in 2013. Anna Himali Howard is a director and theatre maker. She's worked on a number of amazing productions and been involved with key works including Levy and Small Island, where she's been staff director. Jay Bernard is a writer from London whose interdisciplinary practice includes poetry, film, and the archives, and his wonderful collection of poems, which won the Ted Hughes Award last year, and it's really fabulous. I recommend it to you. Okay, so we're going to kick off with Bill. Bill, I remember vividly visiting Stuart in the last years of his life, and he was tapping away at the screen, working on this memoir. But every time, disorientates me, every time, he seemed to be going backwards. So one day he was working on chapter 2, and then the next time I saw him some months later, he was back on chapter 1. So it seemed like there's this painstaking process of writing and rewriting and circling between past and present. And he was also saying about things that he just re-remembered, but also things that he feared he'd forgotten. So I wonder if you could speak a bit about Familiar Stranger, which you have co-authored in the process of making the book.
Yes. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for coming. This is the book, Familiar Stranger, Stuart Hall's memoir. As you'll see, it's not fantastically big. But this little book took 20 years of conversations. Because it began with me interviewing Stuart at the end of the 1990s. Maybe 4 mornings or something like that, 5 mornings maybe. I transcribed them, gave him the rating, and I said, Stuart, we're nearly there, we've nearly got the memoir done. Just have a read of this. And maybe there are 5 or 6 little questions which will cover everything, and then we said that for the conversation. He said, yeah, but just give it to me, and I'll have a 20 years later, this little manuscript that grew into 300,000 words. And Gilane is absolutely right. The book, when Stuart Hall ceased to be mobile and he couldn't go on the stump and go speaking and go and meet people, be involved in public life, he kind of poured his life, his energies, his declining energies into this. And again, Gilane is absolutely right that he just attacked each chapter at different moments, backwards, forwards. He rewrote chapter 1 200 times, and then he put chapter 1 to chapter 7. And so the manuscript at the end when he died, this enormous thing, was really an unwieldy text. And the really sad thing is that poor Stuart is that his eyesight was badly diminished. So he had to have a computer with a massive screen. But even then, all he could read was a paragraph he said, which was in front of him. So he couldn't see what he'd written the day before or anything. So he was having to work in this most intricate, difficult, textual way to try and write the whole story. And when we finally pieced the manuscript together, we could see some of the difficulties, but it wasn't the most rationally organized thing. And it is it's not a memoir, but it is a memoir. It's a very particular sort of memoir. Because what he's concerned about is how his life generated the theories to which it became attached. So even though this isn't an academic book, it's very far from an academic book. Running through it, it's the question about the relation between his own life, particularly his life in early colonial Jamaica, and how that led him to look at the social world from a particular standpoint. So all the time, he's trying to think of the relations between his interior life, his imaginary life, how he thinks he's living his life, and the words which he's writing on the page. The epigraphs to the book, you'll see how they complicate any idea of a memoir. So the first one is from Henry James, The Portrait of Levy, Stuart Hall's favorite all-time novel. One of the characters says, "What do you call oneself? Where does it begin? Where does it end?" And then the second epigraph we got is from Stuart Hall in 2004, when he returned, I think for the last time, to his native land, to Jamaica. And he said these words which have become very famous subsequently. "One simply cannot and will never be able to fully recuperate one's own processes of thought, or do it creatively or self-reflectively. I cannot become identical with myself." Now that's led people up all kinds of garden paths. It isn't an enigmatic proposition, but it's a completely winning proposition, I think. Now, what the story of the book involves really is, he says, right at the beginning of the memoir, he said that he came to realize late in life that his life was his own to make. He said, I realized that my life was my own to make. Now what that means, of course, is that when he was growing up as a racially subjugated figure in colonial Jamaica, he never could believe that his life was his own to make. And so, although it seems perhaps obvious to us from our current age that our lives are all our own to make, well, for Stuart Hall, he certainly wasn't growing up to believe that that was so. There were certain paths and destinies mapped out for him, over which he had no say. But it was assumed that as a light-skinned, brown, middle-class, smart young man, it was assumed he would become a diplomat, maybe an academic, or maybe a politician, or maybe governor somewhere in the British Empire. Goodness only knows, and of course, all bridal people thought of anything of that. So the story is how he begins to understand that his own life is his own responsibility. And there's the kind of, I've only just realized it, even though I was spent 20 or 30 years now thinking closely with this thing, I've only just realized that the pivot to this book is the moment Stuart Hall, he came from Jamaica in 1951 with his mum. His mum came to make sure that all was well in this land of white heathens. And he was staying in some religious hostel on the Bayswater Road. His mum wasn't particularly religious, and Stuart Hall certainly wasn't religious, but they ended up there somehow. And there's a moment where Hall walks down towards Paddington Station, and he is mesmerized as he sees pouring out of Paddington Station, all these dispossessed black Caribbean folk with their cardboard cases and their straw hats and their summer frocks and so on. And Stuart Hall couldn't believe that Black Jamaica, in its density, was here in London. And he'd been brought up as part of the growing middle class in Jamaica to absolutely disavow the presence of Black Jamaica. Blackness was barbarism, uncivilized, and so on. And here he was. He never felt at home in Jamaica, in colonial Jamaica. He arrived in Britain, in England, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He recognized it all because he'd read English literature, he'd read Thomas Hardy, Dickens, and so he could spot all these geographies of England. But he couldn't acclimatize himself to the prevailing civilization which England represented. And certainly when he arrived at Oxford University in 1951, that was like a kind of miasma for him. He just couldn't believe that such, this was even before the time of Boris Johnson. He couldn't believe that such existences.
Bill, can we pause on that image, that wonderful image of Stuart seeing Black Jamaicans coming out beautifully dressed out of Paddington Station, because actually that is an image which Anna and the team who created Small Islands have conjured in this extraordinary performance, which I hope you're about to see or will see or have seen. And then you were staff director on the production, which I saw this afternoon and just blew me away. And there is an amazing, I shouldn't spoil it if you're about to go and see it, but there's a wonderful staging of that moment of embarkation and disembarkation actually are also pivotal moments. Arrival and departure are pivotal moments in the production. And you told me that Stuart's memoir was part of your research and it accompanied you every day on set as you were preparing this staging of Andrea's novel. I wonder if you could talk now about how you see Familiar Stranger and Small Islands interlocking. Quite different texts, one fictional, one non-fiction.
So we talked a lot in rehearsals. Something, a line that was repeated throughout rehearsals was bringing life to history and history to life, which was very much about looking at archival footage and really emphasising the personhood of each person in those archival materials, and bringing them out of the photo onto the stage. And then later when you look at that archival material, you see more life in that archival material than perhaps you did before. And Rufus would talk a lot about how he prepared for production with Andrea and how Andrea had taken him through her family photo albums and sort of gone through that process with him and explained all the people in the photos and impressed upon him the personhood of those people. And so that was really important to us. And that sort of comes through in the projection and our use of archival materials in the show. So I already knew that there was going to be a lot of, it's going to be a very research heavy production, and we were going to need a lot of historical material. And I'd just come off working on an adaptation of The Small Plates by Jamaica Kincaid. So I was very immersed in small islands and the Caribbean. And I'd wanted to read Familiar Stranger for a while anyway. So I bought a copy and I brought it into rehearsals. And when I read it before rehearsal started, it really seemed to me that they were parallel books. And there were some moments that seemed completely uncanny, and then I had to investigate and discover that Andrea and Stuart had been friends, and of course those links were, I wasn't making them up. The phrase familiar stranger appeared in Small Island, and I sat back in my sort of even the story of Michael in Small Island, I felt I was like, well, surely this is linked to Stuart. It would be crazy if it wasn't. So yeah, it really felt like they were in parallel. So I had on my desk in rehearsals a copy of Small Island and a copy of Familiar Stranger. And there were lots of different aspects that we would open that book up for. One was definitely the story of Michael, particularly this narrative of the young boy who is raised in a very conservative household and is sent off to be educated. And the presumption, as is so often the case, is that he'll go off and become more like his parents and come back ready to take on that role, and instead he comes back enlightened and goes against everything his parents stand for. And that's what happened in the play, and I really found inspiration for that character from Familiar Stranger. It felt really familiar. So I definitely went up to CJ and excitedly showed him these pages from the book. CJ's playing Michael. And it's like, this is just like Michael, sort of the scene where he comes home to dinner and starts talking to his parents about all these unacceptable things at the dinner table. And in Familiar Stranger, it's about emancipation and liberation and independence. And in Small Island, it's about creationism. But the effect is the same. And then there was also a lot of research we were doing into labour movements in Jamaica. And that was that made Familiar Stranger a really useful resource for that. As we teased out the sort of fictional storylines that are woven together by Andrea and tried to put together, but where in history, because we always end up doing that in rehearsals, we're like, but where in history did this happen and what day and what time? And then we can muddle it all together again, but we have to know. So it's really useful for that. And then a lot of the conversations we were having around colorism, and when people say coloured in the play, when people say black in the play, and what that means for those characters, particularly Hortense, and her idea before she moves to England, that her paleness will be recognised as social currency when she gets to England, and her betrayal of her friend Celia, who's a much darker skinned woman than her. And that felt really important to have those conversations and have the book as a resource to talk about that, about the development of black identity in Jamaica, and the division between identities of black and coloured at that time. So for us it felt invaluable, I think, but also one of many historical resources that we've brought in. There were loads of sort of familiar moments like that from the book, but also we had a man who was on the Empire Windrush come into rehearsals to chat to us called Alfred, and we had a big wall of pictures on the wall for historical research, and he recognised himself in one of the pictures. And that felt like a similar moment where all of these materials come together, because there is knowingly and unknowingly a network of images and texts that all sort of link together.
Stuart wrote a wonderful essay about the people on the Empire Windrush and how they present themselves and how they embody their sense of self in the way they dress and present themselves. And I thought you picked up on that brilliantly in the play. And you've been talking about archive, and that leads me on to Jay, because in 2016 you were invited to the writing residence at the George Academy Institute, and an archive library research centre dedicated to another brilliant Caribbean intellectual and activist, George Academy. And the focus of your research was the archive and documents relating to the Newcastle fire that happened in 1981 when 30 black teenagers died in what many of us suspected was a racist arson attack, but there was no conclusive evidence, and there was much discontent about what was seen to be the sort of governmental and institutional silence. 13 dead, nothing said became a sort of mantra. I was very struck in the author's note that you wrote to Serge, and you wrote that the archive became for me a mirror of the present and much needed instruction manual to navigate what felt like a repetition of history. And I certainly felt watching Small Island, that there were things being said that I could hear echoes of into the contemporary present now. obviously said differently, slightly different words, obviously very different historical moment. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, and the idea of history haunting the present, which Stuart evokes so powerfully in Stranger. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was very, very happy to see the production today. I was like, it was just amazing. And like, I read Familiar Stranger a couple of years ago, I think, when it was first out, maybe a year or two ago. And so it felt like a really lovely combination. And I could see as well how the two were linked. And as I was thinking kind of more about my own work, I saw the threads as well. Because I think Stuart Hall himself, with this play, we're all trying to kind of tackle a particular question, I think, about this present moment, about history. And when Stuart Hall says something like, I cannot be identical with myself, I read that as there are traces of myself, it's residue, ephemera of myself that can never quite be gathered up, in one convenient way. And certainly as a thinker and as a writer, he never struck me as somebody who ever was about the monolith, A friend of mine said that he was the kind of person who would be writing his essay up to the wire, so he'd be in the car, still writing his piece. And I think that is something that I really resonates with me, I think, as a poet and as a writer. I think of him fundamentally as creative, actually. And that's probably because I've seen his documentaries and seen him presented to me via John Comfort. So I think my first serious engagement with Stuart Hall was via this incredible installation that John Comfort made, an unfinished conversation, which was first a kind of 3-panel installation, again, that notion of being singular, being identical with the identities and histories that have been sort of put upon you, is kind of like blown apart in that treatment, right? And I could see some of John Comfort's influence, I think, in the production today, which I just thought was absolutely stunning. Like, it was just absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how they did that, but the dark and the smoke and the clouds, all of that on this amazing curved panel, just struck me as being absolutely of the essence of this kind of ghostliness and this haunting, and taking the archive, as you said, bringing life to history and history to life. As someone who's been working the archive for some time, there is this notion of living archive, right? And I think it's a really important notion at the moment in particular, because I think what is this archive fever? Do you know what I mean? Like, what is this like this vibe that we're all kind of getting? And for me, it's because we're in a kind of strange time of sort of the degradation of language and the degradation of peoples, and I think also we're in a very amnesiac time as well, where someone can say something one day and forget it the next. So it's incredibly important to bring all the ghosts in, to let them in, to let them stand there, to let them be present. So I think the production was just stunning, and I think it really spoke back to that kind of sensibility that sort of John Comfort kind of like created, and others too. Like, it actually reminded me of another film called Occasion. I don't know if you came across that when you were doing your amazing film that looks like a kind of like degradation of nitrate. Right? So there's that amazing bit where the frog gets nothing happens. Backstage, but with part, and it's this degradation of the film. It's this incredible sort of collocation, sort of two things that kind of happened at once. So that was wonderful. And then I kind of, in terms of sort of my own exploration of the archives and my own exploration of history, I think the bit with Familiar Stranger that resonated with me most was when he talks about going to Oxford. Because that's my experience, and it was really nice to have somebody really nail what was so disconcerting about that experience, and which I think is like a resident of being black and British, and the kind of contradiction, the kind of supposed contradiction that lies between these two things. He talks about his classmates just having this kind of assumed cultural knowledge that he could just never have, and I always kind of felt the same. And I thought the heartbreaking bit when Michael goes off to his boarding school and leaves behind Hortense was just, it was resonant of so many things. The leaving and the coming and the going, and the leaving and the coming and the going was particularly beautifully sort of shown through the doors. And I could sit here and talk all day long about what was going on with those doors. There was just so many, you know, they were coming up and going down, and then sometimes people were walking through the doors, sometimes they were walking through another door. All of that, I just thought was absolutely beautiful and wonderful, but also kind of looked quite hard, I think, at presence and absence, coming and going, who we are right now, where are we, what are we inhabiting, who are we who are inhabiting it. So that was really great as well. Yeah, and I think in my own work, the archive is becoming important, ever more important, because it's also a source. It's actually a deeply conservative social function. The archive, it's about recording people and control of people. But I think increasingly and I can definitely talk a little bit more about this. We're kind of learning a little bit how to kind of use it to our own ends and for our own. So anyone else want to read?
Yes, I would love it if you would read. I've got it here.
Oh, thank you.
Which is the one.
I'm going to read this, and then I thought I would just end with just a little bit from Stuart himself, because I think he's got a
Perfect.
great arc. And as you sort of noted, this whole book comes from the specific archives from the George Admiral Institute, where I kind of looked at the Crossfire and was responding specifically to that archive, not necessarily history itself. Arc. Now shall we consult the life of a stranger. Now shall we see what can and cannot be kept. I take this morning from its box, see how the years have warped its edges, its middle pages conjoined the text. I remove the rusted red paperclip, dry sponge its brittle red remains, unfold a liver-spotted note in copper ink, date it by the flaking letraset and amber glue, press each part to the flatbed scanner, wonder which words to file the damp smoke and young bones under. I sometimes recognize a face from a high 8 film. I'm introduced to she who squatted in the 70s, who made that speech, who remembers 81, when a crowd black as my hand gathered one morning, came over Blackfriars Bridge and were heckled by the press. The year was still fresh, still screaming with its eyes closed. Me brother dead, me brother dead, me brother dead, oh. Me sister dead, me sister dead, me sister dead, oh. A white-sleeved hack hung from that ledge to better spit at some kid who recalls it by their cup of archived wine. I take this January morning in my hands and wonder if it should go under London, England, Britain, British, Black British, where to put the burning house, the child-made ash, the brick in the back of the neck, the shit in the letterbox, and piss up the side of it. I file it under fire, corpus, body, house. And you said something about disavowal earlier. Just in my little notes, I remember that he was making a passage where he talks about disavowal. But maybe I can't remember. I wish I'd done the notes clearer ones. It doesn't matter. If it crops up again, I'll
That's wonderful. Well, we thought we'd open this up because, like you said, Stuart was a man who liked to have conversations, and we wanted this to be a conversation. So I wondered if there were any questions for our panelists. Maybe I know well. Hello, Suzanne. Actually, we're live streaming this. Do we have a microphone? No, we don't. Okay, but if you could just speak loudly, please.
So I don't think colorism is a term that Stuart uses in the book, but it's a term that I've heard used more recently. Obviously, it's not a new idea, but I just wondered if you could say something about whether you think it's a useful idea or how you think it's a useful idea now, particularly.
Well, so for us, it was very useful in rehearsals, I think. A lot of people in the company felt very strongly about that, particularly people who are playing roles where that is coming into effect for them. Because I think as an actor, you could tend to go through something again and again, but your body doesn't know the difference. So they really feel the effect of going through that every night. So it's important for them to be able to name it. And that's their contemporary name for it. So that was what we were talking about in the rehearsal room, and I sort of extrapolated that from the different texts. But of course, Andrea doesn't use it, and Stuart doesn't use it. It's a term that I think the actors found useful in the moment, but I don't know about anyone else.
I think it's interesting because there are bookends, aren't there, in the play about Hortense and the fact that her Thames is mixed race, and then the baby, Queenie's baby, and there's a sense that in both situations there is a hierarchy of skin colour which has enormous political and societal effects. And I think that it's interesting that you needed to find something to kind of contain what is very, very uncomfortable source of lots of tensions and questions for the player.
Yeah, it was really important for us to talk about it a lot in rehearsals, because also none of the casting had been done by accident. It had been done really deliberately. So to not talk about that would to ignore some of the, like you say, some of the archival material that has its parallels today, and that those actors face in their daily lives. So they're really telling a story that's about their life now, as well as about their grandparents or their aunties and uncles.
But that was very like with Stuart as well, wasn't it, in terms of his family situation, and that existed, the hierarchy of race and sense existed within that nuclear family construct.
Yeah, there's a wonderful passage where he was only a small boy, but he talks about labour rebellions in Jamaica in 1938. And what he does is in the early chapter, he talks about the kind of psychic interplay, the psychic antagonisms which ran through his family, between him and his sister and his parents. And how that is a kind of reenactment of the national situation, of the national social rebellion. It doesn't make heavy weather of it. But what it's trying to do is to say what's going on politically on the national stage, the national political stage, and what's going on in our daily domestic, subjective lives. But there are lines of connection. We can't always see them, but they are connected. And the more we can see those connections, the better it will be for all of us. And that's partly with Stuart Hall's intellectual work, with the about to try and just tease out these connections and see how politics is lived in all these different manifestations. But I think it's a very rich moment, but which, of course, you can't kind of tie it up. And you can't say, well, actually, in my family, when I was 6 years old, this was a microcosm of the national stage. But he just hints that these lines of connection, these kind of subterranean lines of connection are there. And I think it's very valuable to think about. It's another way of thinking about how race operates, silently in the places where you don't expect it to.
And his brother as well was a big sort of defender almost of the
Yes.
social rights, right? So there's that amazing line in the film where she goes, I hope you're not hanging around with those immigrants. And he's like, that's what I am.
That's right.
So there's a kind of split.
For
Jay and for Anna, I was wondering how the kind of, I guess, quite British way of not addressing our histories. For example, I'm not sure that the New Crossfire is common knowledge. Likewise, when we had the Windrush scandal recently, it became clear that it wasn't common knowledge that the Windrush people were asked to come here. How has that very British habit of forgetting our horrific history affected both your work in the book and in the play?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, part of my reason for writing Surge was because I was disoriented by what I knew and what I was seeing playing out. So I was in the archive looking at New Crossfire, the format was international consciousness, and it felt, even then, it felt strange to me that it wasn't better known. And I kept asking people, oh yeah, I'm doing something like New Crossfire, maybe I should what's that? I was like, okay, so I was explaining it, and I kind of felt myself becoming a little bit of a sort of, I had a little script, and I found myself doing this educational work, but then at the same time, whenever I bring it up in an audience, 5 or 6 much older people would be like, oh yeah, I was there in that watch. I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that? Where is the evidence of your watch? And funnily enough, if you go across the road to the bar, you can watch Benedict Shabazzi's Blood of the Run, which is an amazing short film, which is almost contemporary to the movie. He did record all this amazing footage and kind of like trying to talk about the story and the there. But even that's not particularly well known. So I think part of the work of I guess art and culture is to keep these things alive, but not in a didactic way, so that you're getting the essential experience of it, and you're getting across the kind of germ of the history. And then if you want to do the hardcore, Pew Fry style thing, you can do that as well. But I think there's something very important about works like art and plays and so on, and not allowing broader society to forget. I mean, it's amazing that Small Island is now exists in 3 forms, right? It's a play, it's a film, it's a book, probably going to be a dance, and festival. You know what I mean? And that's actually good.
For me, there's 2 aspects. One is the political gesture of doing this play here. And obviously the process to put this on started years before any of the Windrush scandal happened. But I think artists have an uncanny ability to predict where we're going, to know what we're going to need. And buildings like this have a role to listen to those people and sort of give them the resources they need to bring that into the public at the point where it will be needed. Not necessarily in a spiritual way, but I just think artists are listening. And it did just so happen that those 2 events coincided, and as it is, it's become quite a profound comment that the people in the play who are now elders in our society and their children are in danger of deportation. And we can talk about that a lot, both in rehearsals and in the Q&As and that kind of thing. So there's that aspect of the why it's important to put this on now. And I've forgotten the second thing I was going to say, but if I remember it,
We'll come back to you.
Yeah, just to ask whether you think Familiar Stranger could be adapted. Because in a way there's that sort of dialogue in the book, there's a sort of conversation with the reader, but with himself, there's, so I thought, well.
depends on whether you have any commissioning power. I would like to see that, yeah. The adaptation I did of A Small Place was a similar vein in that it was an essay made into a live performance experience, and I think there's a lot of potential to do that with a lot of works that seem like they're theoretical but actually are in dialogue with themselves or with something.
I'm going to put that out there. Anyone in the room with commission power or on the internet watching this by live stream, there's an invitation here to start a conversation with Anna and Bill about how Familiar Stranger could be transformed.
Yeah.
It was amazing hearing Andrea read from it.
That was the other thing I was going to say. We all watched the Imagine documentary on personal rehearsals, and Andrea was talking about how this is British history, and it's about reclaiming it as part of British history, and then it's been disallowed.
And I mean, the area that the trilogy that Bill's writing is very much about, actually one of the things most forgotten is the British, and the thing that's been disavowed has been empire, and there has been no process of decolonisation. Even France has begun now to start to engage with its history, particularly in Algeria, and yet Britain still, you know, in a sense, we've been thrown back to an imaginative space, but one which imagines a past that never existed, rather than a recovery of a history that has actually happened and been experienced. And so this tension between fact and fiction is a very live thing.
And I think this is
You found it.
I found it. I was actually noticed, I just couldn't see it. Because I think it's really important to also just read the way that you said, the way that one of the things I really like about Stuart Hall is the way that he sort of is able to just say things really simply. And it's like, oh God, wow. You really got to the heart of it. And here, like he says, disavowal is a complicated psychic maneuver. It allows people to know and not know at the same time. It suppresses and conceals, but it also releases and sets in motion all manner of morbid symptoms, dangerous and aggressive feelings, and return of the press, which I think is so important today. Yet it is exactly at this point that the collective mind convinces itself it has been cleansed for other higher purposes.
That's really, really fascinating. Lots of brilliant passages in that book. Gentlemen.
I know you said it wasn't an academic work, and I didn't know Stuart Hall. I wondered if he did any psychotherapeutic work or used any of those constructs in his exploration of identity and
Whether you want.
You say psychotherapeutic approaches in his work.
in terms of the discovery of the construction of himself and life and the world around us.
Yeah. Well, he was certainly very influenced by different variants of psychoanalysis. And I think that has been the richest vein in his thinking, how he imagined his own life. So that, I've completely forgotten that quote about disavowal. It is tremendous. But that is a kind of reworking of Freudian concepts. Given Hall's kind of twist and then written in the kind of English rather than some Germanic English and stuff. So that would be the closest way of thinking. I mean, I don't think that he would have felt particularly attracted to the idea of writing as therapy. Although there was something compulsive toward the end of his life, when he knew his years were coming to an end. There was something compulsive about his attachment to the script he was writing. And it's very interesting indeed. I don't know if people know Edward Said's memoir, which was called Out of Place, which frustrated Stuart Hall a lot because he wanted to call his book Out of Place. Said got there first. But Said begins that memoir, which came out 10 years before Hall. He says, I began writing this under the sentence of death. I'd just been diagnosed with a terminal illness. And the discipline that writing gave me provided a way of living with the illness of death. I'm not saying that Hall's experience was the same, but there were similar elements in composition of the story towards the end. So although these are kind of reflected and looking back on the life, there is also much more much sadder, much darker dimension to it.
Also, coming back to this theme of recognition and disavowal, Franz Fanon, Martinican psychoanalyst and writer, is hugely influential for Stuart, and in fact emerges in the play too. There's a couple of moments in the staging of the play with that kind of, as Fanon describes it, in the metropole, the colonized coming into the colonial metropole, and that there is this, sort of fireworks that happen, this sort of drawn and then disavowed, and that's staged incredibly powerfully.
But also, the bit you quoted gave some positive spin to disavow, that it wasn't all just negative. And if we talk about the different forms of small island, there are bits of the TV program which I think are really very interesting, and particularly there's Queenie, the white English woman, who goes out with the dashing young Michael in his RAF uniform. And there's just a passage in the TV program, and I suspect that it was probably a student who had studied Fanon as an undergraduate, and just slipped it in and no one was looking. There's a moment when Queenie says, I'm being on Michael's arm, walking through the park, and there are all these white, hostile looks at him. And she says, for the first time, when those white people looked at me with that hatred, for the first time, I felt I was being seen. Up until that moment, she said she was invisible. So her being on the arm of a black man allowed her to be seen. And she just in the film, in the TV version, you can see that she fills out, and she just feels in command of her own life. She feels that her destiny is hers. In a way that Hall is trying to reconstruct that process in his memoir. And I think it's there in the novel, but it's given a kind of sharpness and an emphasis. It's especially given sharpness and emphasis when you see it visually, when you can see them walking down in the park, and there's Queenie's voiceover. So that's how the narration works. And you hear her say, and for the first time, I felt I was seen.
I was just thinking, I'm sorry, it's not a question, it's not a very well formulated idea, but it's really to sort of touch on something in the service of not forgetting. For example, Alice Walker, who talks about colorism and skin colour and freedom being the same destination. So I think just to remember her and put her in the room. And I think there's something for me about in what both of you presented, which is really the paradox of confinement, when you're up against the limit. But I think what you both talked about in your work, and in reading your poem, Jake, and in the work that you, the acknowledgement of the live parallel for those actors, is something about connection and empathic attunement that makes a very different engagement with history. And I think joins the lines between the interior world of struggle and oppression and all that emotion that you gifted us in a very disciplined way in that beautiful book, and what was going on out there. So it's not a question, it's really a compliment. So thank you for making that possible.
And maybe that is also what you were saying, your question about why are archives, why is there this desire to return in a different way to the past and to the archive, not in a nostalgic, romantic way, although there's always a hint of romance and nostalgia, but to return to it in a way which retrieves things that make sense of the present. And it's that, and I think that's also connected with, we haven't really talked about trauma, but there's a lot of trauma in the play and in the novel, and that is linked to, being, there's a trauma of her Thames being, pulled out of her family. There's the trauma of departure and leaving, and you alluded to as well about the goings and comings, and the going through the doors and things going up and down. But there is also the sense of being riven apart. And I think that there's a question for us about how we can, which can you flagged up about how we make connection, invent ourselves, there is, kind of create, as Stuart was saying, make ourselves out of what we select from the past and how we connect it to the present.
Yeah, I think there's in the I think it's in the original documentary. It might be, I can't remember where I read or heard this from Andrea, but it's about asking her dad about his personal history and his journey to England, and him being like, "Why do you want to know that? Don't ask me that. I don't want to tell you about that." And there's something in the audience that happens that I really love, where generations come together of elders and grandchildren and so on, who are, I guess, using it as a conduit to talk about that story. Because it's always really tempting to make art about your family history. I'm looking away from my mum there. Because otherwise no one will talk about it. So if I say to my grandparents, if I try and ask them about them coming to England and all of that, they sort of give vague replies, and Alfred was the same when he came. They're very tough, and they always say, "Oh, it was fine. It was actually quite funny. We got through it. It's all right. It wasn't that bad." And then you have another generation who were like, "It was terrible. It was awful, and you can't make any jokes about it." And we get that sometimes in the audience as well. Like, I can't believe this is a funny moment next to such a traumatic moment, but that's how I'm going to write. And I think it is being used in those audiences as like a go-between between those conversations and between generations to talk about that trauma. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right about the way she uses humour alongside things which are incredibly painful. And it's that connectivity, isn't it, between the disjuncture and the loss, and the possibility of recuperating it and connecting. You seem to be getting another passage there.
Everything that I want to say has been said.
I don't.
And I think there's just something really interesting about his, the last section talks about the difference between the past and history. I think maybe that's what you're touching on a little bit, because my grandparents are the same. In fact, I've never been able to squeeze information really from there.
To say it's for the project.
Even then,
Yeah.
it's like, what? Like, it's just something they don't really remember. There's no sense for them needing to keep that. The point is, you had your family and your children here, and we're the things that kind of flourish. And I think that's what was so welcome. I think in Small Island, this sense of being left here without necessarily a connection to the Caribbean, but also not entirely of this country as well. And I think he says it really well here. He says to say that the past is somehow missing in the Caribbean is not at all the same as saying the Caribbean has no history, whatever that could mean. He talks about the Stuart Hall condemning the Caribbean because of a place without history. And he says this is not my view. In fact, it seems to me that the burden of history is just too much for its people to bear. And I kind of felt that way as well. When I was kind of like writing surge and email surge, how do you present this stuff to people in a way that is bearable? And I think humour is one way. I noticed in play that every time the atmosphere dropped, someone came up with a line, and I felt kind of like pulled in the direction for that, but also really grateful for that. And I also kind of wanted to say something about just the cupboard as well, because you talked about sort of a place of memory and all that. When he says the cupboard is an interesting place, in terms of the cupboard into this kind of like fine thing. So what a lovely metaphor for excavating histories that we kept from you. What a lovely thing that you went to leave and you entered this strange space instead. And you have to psychically conjure up the courage, you know, to then be like, isn't this amazing? What could be a better metaphor for coming to England? You know?
I think that's an absolutely fabulous place to end. Thank you so much, Jay, Anna, Bill, and thank you all very much for coming. Very quick thank you to Judith, to my colleagues Kylie and Harriet, to Hansi and Hamad, our previous colleagues at the Stuart Hall Foundation. And if you'd like to join our mailing list, a little pitch for the Stuart Hall Foundation, you can leave your details and we'll be delighted to be in touch with you. Thank you all very much.